Okay, I thought I would speak about, because Rosh Hashanah is in a couple of weeks, right? Rosh Hashanah is only 3-4 weeks, actually less. So I thought I would just talk about some of the very important ideas about Rosh Hashanah. I thought that would be very good, and so on, Rosh Hashanah, I like to title this year, Rosh Hashanah is not what you think. Most people do not know what Rosh Hashanah is. It's interesting. And if you ask somebody, well, what is Rosh Hashanah about? They will tell you it is a time of judgment. You see? And is that true? It's true. That's not really what the essential message or the essential feature of Rosh Hashanah is. You see? And because of that, a person has to know what is being judged, why. So therefore, when you try to pray, intercede in the judgment process, you have to know exactly what to say, what your line of argument is. Very important, okay? And so forth. Now, the reason why Rosh Hashanah is really problematic in terms of a day of judgment, okay? How could there be a judgment day once a year? Could you imagine if the courts were only opened one day in New York City, one day out of the year? What would happen? You'd have a repeat of Charlottesville. It would be a pandemonium. So how can you have one day a year to be a judgment day? It doesn't make sense. Not only that, we know in the Gemara Rosh Hashanah it says, Adam nidam b'chol yom. A man is judged, a person is judged every day. Not just Rosh Hashanah, which of course is obvious. So then what's the difference between Rosh Hashanah and every day of the year? You see. Also what's interesting is that every Jewish holiday corresponds to a Jewish event. Pesach to Egypt, Yetzias Mitzrayim, Shavuos, Mount Torah, Sukkot, whether it be the clouds or the huts and so on, Yom Kippur, when Moshe Rabbeinu came down. Every holiday represents some type of Jewish event. What does Rosh Hashanah represent? Nothing Jewish happened on Rosh Hashanah. I mean, the only thing that happened on Rosh Hashanah is Adam Rishon, right? Adam Rishon was created on the first day of Tishrei, which is Rosh Hashanah. But Adam Rishon is not Jewish. So then what's the Jewish connection to Rosh Hashanah? That's what the question is. You see, are we going to say that Rosh Hashanah is the only example of a day that really has nothing? Is Rosh Hashanah a universal day, because that's when the world was created? Or is it something uniquely Jewish? And we know that all the holidays that we celebrate or commemorate is uniquely Jewish. So that's the question. What does that mean? Also, why is Yom Adin on Rosh Hashanah? Truth is, it's two different concepts. If there would be a judgment day, why does it have to be on the first day of Tishrei? It can be any day. What is the connection that a judgment day is on the first day of the year or when the world was created? What is really the connection? It also says that everything is judged. The question is why? I can understand why man is judged, because he has free will. So therefore, if he does something bad, then he is culpable, he's guilty. But animals have no free will. Why are they judged? Why is the entire world judged? See? How could that be when they are not guilty of anything? So the question, of course, is, what does it mean that they're judged? Another question. Imagine a guy, he's being tried for life and death. A sentence, if he's being tried, right? So so he's being tried, let's say the next day. Let's say it's Tuesday, right? So you knock on his door Monday night, right? And the guy lets you in, and you find that he's got a whole festive meal going on. His family's there, all the best dishes are there, he's got all the best food and so on and so forth. So you say, well, what is this? So the guy said, what do you mean, what is this? Don't you know? I'm being tried tomorrow if I live or die. What? Why would anybody be doing this? You'd think he'd be in a dark room, crying his eyes out, or taking Prozac. Popping pills, Prozac and Valium and all that kind of stuff, right? What's he doing, making a su'udah on a day of judgment? It's life and death. This makes no sense. You know? Does anybody think about life and death on Rosh Hashanah? Who thinks about it, you know? You're just thinking about, well, the great food that you're going to go home to, you know, you're waiting till it's all over, and then you go home, make kiddush, and eat a great meal. What does this have to do with the day? What the person does in terms of the activity, the meal, the festive meal, is completely contradictory to the entire meaning of the day. It doesn't make sense. So what's going on here? You know, will somebody tell me really what's going on here? Is it a day when a person judges life and death? Or is it not that day? What is this? You see. And what's interesting is the Malachim said to the Rebbeinu Shalom, you know, why don't we say Hallel? You know? Hey, if things are so great, we'll have a festive meal, why don't we say Hallel? Can you imagine this saying Hallel on Rosh Hashanah? So the Rebbeinu Shalom says to them, well, since the books of life and death are opened in front of me, which is judgment, can't say Hallel. Like, what's this discussion about? You know, the Malachim know that the books of life and death are opened. Why would they even think about saying Hallel? How could you say Hallel when you're in the defendant's seat, where there's a big prosecuting attorney trying to get you killed? Something just doesn't wash. Another idea. Why is there a shofar? The mitzvah, we know that the main mitzvah of the day is the shofar. Why? What does a shofar do? You know, because you blow a ram's horn, therefore that's supposed to make things better? What does this have to do with the judgment day? You see. And then it says that the Satan is confused on that day. You know? So the question is, why is it confused? You think after 5,776 years, 77 years, he would have figured it out. I mean, the guy's got a big IQ, you know? You mean he hasn't figured out after 5,777 Rosh Hashanahs what's going on here? Yet he's still confused? Don't sound like he's too smart, right? and so on. Also, why is Aseret Simei Tshuva after Rosh Hashanah? Should be before, right? What's it doing after? It's after the judgment. You don't want this. You want Aseret Simei Tshuva before the judgment, not after the judgment. So then why do we have it after the judgment? That's the question. Okay, there's a lot of questions. Obviously, it does indicate that there's something we don't understand, what's going on. And therefore, we need to get a handle on Rosh Hashanah. What does it all mean, really? And I had once mentioned, but I'll repeat it, that there are three actions of God. There are three things that God does. The totality of the acts of God can be subsumed under three different categories. One is that there are a series of actions which create everything for man to be tested. That's called the Anogas HaKiyum. It is the attribute of that God does, the behavior of God, where He creates everything. It's a setup, the background, okay, where a person can be inserted into that background, and he is now tested to see will he do what God wants or not. So that's the Anhoga, the series of actions of Kiyum that brings about the possibility of the fulfillment of creation, which is that man is tested and brings a tikkun to the world. You see. And the idea, of course, is that everything God does advances the process or the purpose of creation. Everything God does must have that in mind, that it advances the process of creation. If something is no longer needed, then it disappears. That's why animals are allowed to go extinct, because apparently under this cheshbon, under this reckoning, then their purpose is gone. So therefore man is able to create an extinction in that animal. If that was not the case, then obviously they could not become extinct. Also, everything that is created, for instance, there are 300,000 species of beetles. Species, not beetles, much more beetles. That means there are 300,000 different looking bugs. And I just hope they're not in your backyard. You know? Why? You mean there couldn't be 299,999 species? You mean that one species of bug or beetle would have stopped the creation? And the answer is yes. Everything that exists must have a justification. And that justification is that in some way they advance the purpose of creation. You see, it's a very important idea.
Ecosystem or outside the ecosystem?
Everything, within or outside the ecosystem. Now we don't know most of these things. We don't know why there has to be 7,000 species of ants. You see, there are 30,000 species of orchids. Would you believe that? 30,000 different plants called an orchid. So it's astounding what the Bansham did. Many things have thousands of species of that. Even mosquitoes, there are thousands of species of mosquito. And you're probably thinking they're all attacking you at night, you know. But we don't understand, why does there have to be so many, and I'm not even talking about how many mosquitoes there are. There are billions of mosquitoes. We don't know. But all of them is part of Anhogas HaKiyum. It's all necessary for the creation to come to its intended purpose. So that's the first series of actions. The second series of actions is God waits for man to see what he does. Will he listen to the dictates of God or not? Will he do the mitzvahs or not? And God waits. And the response of that is called Anhogas HaMishpat, judgment. God then judges man, and based on that, he does one of two things. Either he rewards him not as a real reward, because that's only in the future world, he rewards him with greater opportunities to do more mitzvahs. And that's really what it is. If a guy all of a sudden does mitzvahs and he finds himself in possession of a lot of money, that simply means that he's been given more money to have greater opportunity and wealth in order to do the mitzvahs, you see. Or God will punish him in terms of undoing the sins that he does. So that's the Anhogas HaYichud, the Anhogas HaMishpat. That is the judgment, the actions of judgment in which a person is rewarded or punished. Remember, the reward is always in the form of an opportunity, not a real reward, because you cannot get the real reward here. The third series of actions is called Anhogas HaYichud. What does that mean? Because if you think about it technically, since man has free will, it is possible for all mankind to sin 24/7. And what that would do is not only make sure that he never gets the future world, but that he frustrates the will of God. That's what it means. So what the Bansham decided is that did this ever happen? And the answer is yes. By Noach, God destroyed the world because mankind primarily sinned 24/7. So what the Bansham has is called Anhogas HaYichud, which means that there's a series of actions that guarantees that the tikkun, the rectification of creation, must be accomplished, notwithstanding the fact that a man has free will. You see, that's called a backup device, contingency plan. So therefore, and those series of actions, which are part of this Anhogas HaYichud, part of the actions which ensures the possibility that the creation will have a tikkun, those actions are very mysterious. We don't really know when they're activated or when they're not. You see. And when it says Hanistaros L'Hashem Elokeinu, it refers really to those actions. The secrets are with God, and there's those actions that guarantee the fact that this creation will have a tikkun. So there you are, 3 series of actions that God does, which I had once talked about before. What comes out of all of this is interesting. If a person opens up a business, yes? Let's say a guy opens up a business on January 2nd, right? 1 year. What will he do the next year on January 2nd? He will have what's called a periodic assessment. Any person who has a business always has to periodically assess, is he making money or not? Does he have too much inventory, right? Is his marketing division good? How about the accounting? What's happening? Am I making money or not? So there's always has to be a periodic assessment, right? To see if the business is working out or not. Now you can't do an assessment every day because you've got to give what you implemented time to work, see if it works. You see? But we do know that any what's called enterprise always has to have a periodic assessment. Well, think about that, right? And then based on that reassessment, right, you have a readjustment. You see? You need to readjust that which you've reassessed. You see? And it's maybe I have too much inventory, I don't have enough advertising. Then you readjust based on the assessment that you made. Because the bottom line in a business is money, profits. That is the bottom line. And that you always have an eye on profits. It's when you don't, that's when you lose. Now think about that. What is the enterprise of God? What is his business? His business is called tikkun, isn't it? That's his business. So therefore God always is looking at where does the tikkun stand? Where is it? The Jews are the ones who do the tikkun. Are the Jews doing the tikkun or they're not doing the tikkun? Where's the balance of the kedusha? Remember, where is the holiness, or what's called the Kabbalah, the sparks of holiness? Where are they? Are they with the Jews or are they with the Satan? What's happening here? So God is always concerned about where is the balance of spirituality, because that's his business. He wants to bring the redemption, the geula, right? And therefore he always wants to know where is the balance of kedusha or holiness. What are the Jews doing? So therefore what God does, he does the same thing. He assesses not an individual, he assesses the tikkun of the entire bria. Where are we holding? And the question then is, what is your contribution to this tikkun? You see. So the problem is, if you're not doing your job, God may say, well, I'm going to change your place in the tikkun process. You see. It's not so much a punishment. What it's more is, where am I going to put you to advance the purpose of creation, which is the rectification? That's what God does. You see? So God may look at somebody and say, you're wealthy, you're not doing it. You're not doing the mitzvahs that I thought you could do. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to reassign you to a new spot, and guess what? That new spot means you got to be poor. You see? So you are looked at in terms of the tikkun more than you are looked at in terms of your sins. It's not an individual sin that God necessarily looks at you. What he really looks at is, what is your contribution to the tikkun? Is it working or not? And if not, he's going to reassign you to a worse place. If you're a VP, a vice president, you're not doing your job, guess what? He's going to send you to the mailroom as a clerk. And that's the last place you want to go, right? You don't want to do that, right? He's going to diminish or demote you. Nobody wants that, you see. And therefore, that's what he has to do.
Why is demotion advancing tikkun?
God knows what the process is and where you need to fit to assist the process.
That's the Hanagas HaMishpat, HaYichud.
That's the Hanagas HaYichud, correct.
What about Hanagas HaMishpat?
It's all, in that sense, it's all the same. All I'm saying is that Rosh Hashanah is the assessment time of the tikkun. That is the primary thing that goes on. God reassesses your position in that process. What's your contribution? Are you assisting, right? Or you obstructing? And it's not just an individual, it's national. Well, the Jews are messing it up in Spain. So guess what? He's going to allow Isabel and Ferdinand, right, to kick the Jews out. Because clearly whatever was happening in Spain was not assisting advancing the purpose. So it's not the individual Jew that was only judged, it was the nation of Israel. You see, different countries. Or God may say, I need the Jews to go into that country because in that country they can do the tikkun better, because that's based on the test. So what does he do? All of a sudden that nation becomes prosperous and they become super wealthy, and the Jews move into that nation to benefit from the wealth. You see? So a nation can change its economic status, or its military status, or its political, or whatever, in order to shift the Jews around. You see? Everything that is done for the sake of tikkun. And since the Jews are the only one that can do the tikkun, everything that is done is for the sake of the Jews. But what I'm trying to tell you, it's not an individual basis of sin or mitzvahs. It's based on the tikkun itself, which is a much greater assessment than an individual assessment. You see, that's what happens on Rosh Hashanah. You see. And therefore, that answers many questions. Many questions. Okay. Is Rosh Hashanah, how could you have a Yom Adin once a year? Am I asking you that? So first of all, what is the essence of Rosh Hashanah? Right? It's not so much judgment, it's assessment based on the tikkun process. You see. And that's why it's not a contradiction in the Gemara where it says a person is judged every year, every day. Because every day he's judged in terms of how is he doing in whatever role God put him in, mitzvahs and averos. But once a year he's judged in terms of the overall contribution to the entire tikkun process. You see, that's the difference between the two judgments. You see, okay. What does Rosh Hashanah have to do with a Jewish holiday? What Jewish event? And the answer is, Rosh Hashanah is not a Jewish holiday. It's an Israeli holiday. Now, before you get caught up in that, Israeli holiday, what is that supposed to mean? Who is Adam Rishon? Adam Rishon was not Jewish because in the beginning, the Rebbeinu Shalom never intended to give the tikkun to the Jews. He wanted to give it to mankind. Therefore, Adam Rishon wasn't a Ivri, a Hebrew, a Jew, right? He was a Yisrael. The concept of Yisrael means a person that can do the tikkun. He has an neshama that can do tikkun. That's Yisrael. You see, it's only because mankind sinned for 2,000 years that Avraham Avinu took over the job of tikkun, and the Rebbeinu Shalom took it away from the nations of the world. So therefore, the Jews became the Israelis, Yisrael. You see. So therefore, Adam was a Yisrael, but not an Ivri or Yehudi. Therefore, but the essential job of a Jew is what? Is tikkun. So the essential job of a Jew is really Yisrael, not Ivri. I just took that Ivri became Yisrael. Or I should say Yisrael became Ivri. But until Avraham Avinu, Yisrael was just the nation of the world. It was Adam Rishon. You see. So therefore Rosh Hashanah is the day that God created the concept of a Masakin, somebody who can rectify creation. That was a non-Jew, or rather a Israeli called Adam Rishon. So that's the day of the business, and therefore, right, that's why it's an Israeli holiday. It has nothing to do with Judaism. It has everything to do with tikkun. Judaism are Jews who took over the tikkun process, and therefore the process of tikkun now becomes Judaism. You see how it works? And since God started the business when Adam was created, when did God start the business of tikkun? With the birth of Adam. When was the birth of Adam? On Aleph Tishrei, right? So therefore, the periodic assessment usually is an annual assessment, right? You started on one day, and a year later on that day, you have an assessment. So therefore, since the whole tikkun process started on when? The birth of Adam Rishon. That's when he inaugurated the whole tikkun. Therefore, Aleph Tishrei, which is when Adam Rishon was created, right? That's when the assessment process is, and that is the assessment of the tikkun process, and that's Rosh Hashanah. See, it makes a lot of sense. once you alter in much larger perspective of what's going on. So therefore Rosh Hashanah is really an Israeli holiday, so to speak, because Yisrael is the essential concept of a Jew. It's just that the nation called Ivri or Hebrew took over that job, and therefore we now celebrate Rosh Hashanah because we are the ones who do the tikkun. You see, very important concept. Why are animals judged and everything? And the answer is they're not judged because they're guilty of something. They're judged to determine where do they have to be for the tikkun to happen. You see? For instance, locusts, which are really a grasshopper that changes into a locust, and there are billions of them, and they come from Africa, and they're carried by the winds over the Mediterranean, and they land all of a sudden in Spain. And guess what? They eat up half the plant. You see, so therefore the locusts are judged. Where do they have to be to allow the tikkun to take place? And if it means that a country has to be punished, so all of a sudden the wind picks up the locusts. That's part of the assessment, right? And picks them up and deposits them in another country. So they're not judged because of guilt, culpability of themselves. They're judged in terms of where do they have to be positioned in order to allow the Jews to do the tikkun. That's what they're judged. And that's all part of the what? That's all part of the assessment.
That's what we pay for Malchus.
What was that?
That's what we pay for Maloicha, Kolor, and Kolor, with that.
Yeah. Because that's really what it is. You want to judge the entire world, you see. However, here's the problem. Now, God did not have to tell anybody that he was doing this, did he? You know, a guy comes into a factory and he sits down and he goes over all the books, he sees what each guy is doing, and then he hands out pink slips. You don't have to tell him anything, right? But the Rosh Hashanah doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to all of a sudden assess. First of all, the assessment of God takes in a nanosecond, as the Mishnah says, B'skira achas. God just looks, and inside of an instant of time, everything that was created is judged, or rather assessed. Now, the Rosh Hashanah didn't have to tell anybody. He could have just done it, and in a nanosecond, it's all over. You see? But then he would have been sending out pink slips. You see? But he doesn't want to do that to Jews. So what the Baruch Hashem did is a tremendous chesed. He warned the Jews that he's going to assess the Bria, judge, right? On Rosh Hashanah. And he warns them, you see? And that's what the Baruch Hashem, it's a chesed. Instead of doing it himself and then acting on what he decided, he wants to warn the Jews so that they can influence the verdict of where they are. See? So Rosh Hashanah, amazingly so, is a tremendous chesed that God did for the Jews. You see? So he warns them, Rosh Chodesh Elul, that in 30 days there's going to be a judgment, right? So the Jews have 30 days to try to clean up their act. Now the judgment takes place, but the Moshe still wants them to do tshuva, right? You know, every country has an appeals court. After the verdict, then you can appeal it, right? Well, the Aseret Simei Tshuva is the appeals, you see? Because you have to have, because maybe all of a sudden the guy was judged and now he finally woke up. And he said, wait a minute, the judgment's over? Someone says, no, I'm going to allow appeal for 10 days. So it's appealed, you see? And in 10 days, you can do tshuva again and reverse the judgment, the assessment. It's a tremendous act of chesed. Lest you think, well, Yom Kippur comes, I'm finished. No. Because what the Baruch Hashem does is he dismisses the Sultan on Yom Kippur. You know, the Sultan has 3 jobs. A Yetzer Hara, a tempter, prosecuting attorney, the Sultan, and the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death, where he executes the judgment. 3 jobs, correct? Okay. So on Yom Kippur, right, he dismisses the Sultan from being a makatreg, a prosecuting attorney. That's why the gematria of HaSultan is 364, because one day in the year he cannot prosecute. So what the Baruch Hashem does is he removes the Sultan as a prosecutor in the Beis Din on Yom Kippur. That means that any tshuva that is done, even if it's insincere, it's half-hearted or whatever, right, is accepted. If there would be a Satan on Yom Kippur, right, and he would hear this guy's tshuva, he would say, "Are you crazy? You want to accept this guy's tshuva?" Right? He doesn't even mean it. You see? But since the Satan is not around, so therefore even any half-baked tshuva will be accepted. So look how far God goes to help the Jews. He warns them 30 days before, right? And then he judges them. Then he gives them 10 days of appeal. And on the last day of appeal, he throws out the prosecuting attorney. Look how much the Rebbe Shem wants a Jew to do tshuva. It's astounding, isn't it? Yes. However, there's a monumental problem here. What's the monumental problem? Because if the Rebbe Shem would have judged the Jews by himself and tell nobody, no problem. There would be no court, because it's only be him. The Rebbe Shem, only in and of himself, he does it, right? But now that the God said to the Jews, you got to do tshuva, and he announced to the whole Jewish people that there's going to be a judgment, who is the one who now knows about it? The Satan. And all of a sudden becomes a whole court case, and the Satan is now there prosecuting. So what the Rebbe Shem did is, by informing the Jews, on one side it's very good, but on the other side, because he informed the Jews, you now have a major Beis Din, a major court session, with the Satan as the prosecuting attorney. And now the Jews are really finished. You see? So it's like thank you and no thank you. So in many ways what the Rebbe Shem did, right, is detrimental to the Jews. You see? So what does the Rebbe Shem do? So what he does is he introduces a mitzvah called shofar. And the shofar stops the Satan from prosecuting even on Rosh Hashanah. You see? So the Rebbe Shem therefore gets away with it. He warned the Jews, and he actually stops when the Jews blow shofar on Rosh Hashanah, he actually stops the Satan from prosecuting. And that's why the Satan is confounded. Of course he knows that the shofar sounds, he will be out of a job. But he's hoping that the Jews don't blow shofar. You see, that's what he's hoping. What happens when the shofar is sounded? All of a sudden, what happens? The shofar is sounded, and the Rebbe Shem all of a sudden gets up from the kisei mishpat, from the judgment. He gets up, and he goes into his private chambers, kisei rachman, and that's the place of Anhogas HaYichud. You see, he gets up from the place of judgment, because the Jews blow shofar, and he goes into his private chambers, and over there he judges the Jews or assesses the whole creation without it being a prosecution, without it being a judgment process. You see, that's what the shofar does. In fact, that's why the first letters of the psukim that we read by before we go shofar spells Koras Satan. Exactly. You see, Koras Satan.
So he doesn't throw him out, he goes out.
He dismisses him. Because the
Dismisses
Jew,
the Satan, or he just leaves the courtroom?
either way, the guy's out.
Extrajudicial.
Extrajudicial, yeah. No, they call it extra partial. What's it called?
Of course.
Extra something, yeah. He ends the case. And the Satan goes out of his mind. And the Satan has to take Valium. You see. Why?
Part of Anhogas HaYichud, it could be perceived as a punishment, meaning...
But it's a guarantee, remember. The Anhogas HaYichud are those actions which God takes to guarantee that the Jews will be in Olam Haba. That's why, in a certain sense, it's not good for us, because the major element or the major instrument that it has is suffering. But at the same time, it guarantees that we will be in Olam Haba.
So the progression in terms of us is we spend Elul shaping up,
Yeah,
and then comes the court case where we're against the Satan.
yeah. And he's
even
there.
Anhogas HaYichud, it's still shaky. Then
Yeah.
there's made tshuva, we can appeal for even better.
Yeah,
So we're guaranteed Olam Haba, but the assessment tshuva makes it so that we perceive it as a better experience, so to speak.
Yeah, but the key idea is still to do tshuva. That doesn't end.
Through tshuva.
Yeah, but at least what it does, any tshuva is acceptable, because once the Rosh Hashanah gets up and he goes into his private chambers and he judges the way he would have judged, remember, without the Satan, right? So that in many ways removes the court process, and therefore we're saved.
So in a certain respect, after shofar, in terms of prosecution, it's the same.
What was that?
In terms of the prosecution, after the shofar is the same environment as Yom Kippur in that respect.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, same thing. But he can't dismiss him the whole 10 days. You see, so that's why it says in the Gemara, if a city does not blow shofar, it's very bad news for that city, for that year. You see, so therefore, God has alerted and warned the Jews so they can at least shape up, right? And he also tremendously diminished and weakened the power of the Satan to prosecute us during that time. So that is really what the shofar does. And that's why the shofar has sounds which resemble crying. Shvarim is a cry. It's different forms that a person cries. A shever, a tekiah, a wail. Shever is a sigh, you know, and a true is a staccato wail. Why does it resemble crying? Yevava, it's called. And the answer is because the primary instrument that Anhagas Yichud uses is Yisurin. But we would rather have that and therefore survive and get Olam Haba. You see. And so that's really what the shofar does.
Where's the confusion?
What's that?
Where's the confusion with it for the Satan?
That the Jews blew shofar.
So he knows the Jews are going to blow shofar.
No, they may not. There are many places that don't blow shofar.
And
you know?
All shofar is going to accomplish is Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to...
He's going to leave, correct. He will leave that courtroom and go to another place, yeah. Yeah. That's right. You know. But in any case, this is the concept of what Rosh Hashanah really is. It's a day of assessment, readjustment. It's on the day that Adam was created, which is the first Yisrael, and we took it over as Jews. God warns us, you see, that's why everything is judged. And the way he stops the prosecution is by the shofar or by Yom Kippur, you know, but mostly by Rosh Hashanah, it's by the shofar. And therefore we're able to survive as a result of that, you see.
I'm not sure if we theorized the question of why is Rosh Hashanah Simcha. You just mean to say that.
Yeah, good. You remind me, yeah. Why is it Simcha? Because we're guaranteed to survive. That's why.
Survive. Not necessarily won't be pleasant.
Yeah, but we're guaranteed to listen. You imagine if you know. Here's the metaphor, right? Okay, you're gonna face a court tomorrow, life and death, right? Will they convict you of murder or not, right? But you know that your guys just paid off the jury. The mafia guys, right? Either they paid them off or they threatened them, one or the other, right? So you know that the jury's gonna vote in your favor, right? So you go into the court, right? You're still nervous because after all, it is a court case, you know. But since you know that you will win, you're not as worried and anxious. See, that's what the Malachim said. The Malachim said to the Moshem, hey, if it's a setup already, so then why bother with the whole thing? Let them just say Hallel, because they're all going to survive anyway. So Moshem says, true. However, since it is a judgment day, you know, and there is an unpleasant aspect of the whole concept of judgment, because maybe they do have to suffer, so you can't say Hallel. You have to be completely joyous and so on, you see. So that's what the Havamina is. And that's why Rosh Hashanah, we don't even think, we're not worried so much. That's why we can sit and have a festive meal. Even though it's like I say, the book of life and death is open. But we know that the Moshe will save us with Anhagas Yichud, you see, and that we will get ultimately Olam Haba. And in the end, that's really what we want, you know. We want to be guaranteed eternal life, infinite bliss eternally. Let's face it. That's the real, here, ends pretty quickly. But over there it's eternal. So that's why we're not as worried about Rosh Hashanah as we should be. You see? It's interesting that people just sit there in front of a whole meal and never ask themselves, what am I doing here? If the book of life and death is opened, what in the world is going on? It's like nobody thinks about it even. Yet that should be the most astonishing aspect of Rosh Hashanah. And not only that, what do they call Rosh Hashanah? Don't they call it a Yom Tov? Right? Do you ever hear them call a Yom Tov a good day? When there's a court case of life and death? Wow. See?
Could there be a stira between Hanagas HaYichud and Hanagas HaMishpat?
The what?
Could there be a stira between Hanagas HaYichud and Hanagas HaMishpat for an individual?
Yes, there could be, yeah.
So which one will win on Rosh Hashanah?
Mishpat. On Rosh Hashanah, Yichud, but in the end, Mishpat. In the great day of judgment, Mishpat will win. Everything must equal out on the great day, you see.
Why isn't...
I did leave one thing out, which nobody seems to be asking me. How does shofar work? Why isn't anybody asking me that? Okay, because you sound like you're pretty satisfied.
And why is it so secret in the Torah?
The answer to that is, what do we read on the second day of Rosh Hashanah? The Akedah. Why? Okay, because of the merit of, of Avram and Akedah, that's true, But is that the only reason, or there's something greater? The answer is much greater. Because you have to understand why shofar works. Why is it if you blow a ram's horn, does it work? Clearly then there has to be a connection between the Akedah and the shofar. What is it? So I'll tell you. The Akedah is a very strange event. Very. You see, imagine Avraham Avinu sleeping. He gets up, right before he goes to sleep, right? And God says to him, okay, here's what I want you to do. You see the guy in the next room? Yeah, that's Yitzchak, right? By the way, tomorrow morning I want you to slit his throat. So Avraham Avinu must have taken a double take. He said, excuse me, are we talking about the same person? Yeah, Yitzchak in the next room. Tomorrow I want you to take him to Hamoriah and slit his throat. Okay. Actually, the Russian didn't say that. He said, Hallelujah. You got to bring him as a sacrifice. What went through Avraham Avinu's mind? Many things. Many things. One, what was the resistance? Right? One, how could he do that? First of all, that's his son. Kill his son. Whoever heard something like that. Number two, Yitzchak is an incredible tzaddik. He's going to kill a tzaddik. Not only that, Avraham Avinu is chesed. How could a guy who's a tremendous kindness kill anybody? Least of all his son. Not only that, Yitzchak was the last Jew. Right? Besides Avraham, there's only one Jew left. That was Yitzchak. You kill him, it's over with. You see, there were many nisyonis that Avraham Avinu had. Many incredible oppositions to this commandment that he would have. But the greatest one that he had was this. Because God said to him, Ki b'Yitzchak yikor lecho zorah, through Yitzchak the Jewish people will survive and continue. Well, we all know this. If Yitzchak is alive, that's possible. If Yitzchak is dead, dead people don't have kids. Right? So how's that possible? So what it was a command of God that was completely incompatible, logical, with a prophecy that he had. That was the greatest nisayon to Avraham Avinu. Because the other things didn't make sense. I understand about them. But this was illogical. You cannot have A and B existing at the same time. You cannot have A, here's the way it works. You cannot have A and not A existing at the same time. You cannot have A where Yitzchak will perpetuate the Jewish people and not A where you kill them existing at the same time. That was the greatest nisayon. It was an illogical command. What does that mean? Therefore, God was presenting himself to Yitzchak as irrational. Irrational. Don't make sense. It's not that God was telling him to do something that was unknown. He was presenting himself irrationally. Hey, this is crazy. And Avraham Avinu had to overcome the nisayon of God's irrationality, where God makes absolutely no sense. Nothing. It's not that I don't understand what he's doing. It's impossible that God should say this because it means he's irrational. You see. And Avraham Avinu said, Afa Pikein. Even though I do not understand how this could be, you see, I have to do it. I have to believe in God. That even when God appears to me irrational, I have to do his will. And he took Yitzchak, went to Akedah. Now, was God irrational? Of course not. Because God never said kill him. He just said bring him up as an oilah. Right? But you could take him down because go get somebody else. The Malach stopped him. So in the end, God was not issuing an irrational plea. Correct? You see, because he never said kill him. But Avraham Avinu understood what anybody would understand. You offer him up as a sacrifice, you finish the job. You see. Why did God do that? You see, why? Very important reason. Why would he do that to Avraham Avinu? Because Rashi says, the nations of the world say to answer in judgment what the nations of the world and the Satan prosecute. Because they always say, what do you want from these guys, Israel? Why do you want them so much? Look what they're doing. They're sinning. Why don't you just drop them and take us? So the Baruch Shem says, listen, if Avraham Avinu loves me so much that even when I appear to him irrational, he still does it, how could I leave them? How could I abandon the Jews when they love me so much that even though I come across as irrational, not just unknown, they still won't give me up? So then how could I ever give them up? You see, that's what protects us. But why the Akedah? Because the Baruch Shem, and why is the Akedah the last nisayon? Because what the Baruch Shem did is he made sure that Avraham Avinu withstood the test of an irrational commandment, which means he withstood the test of an irrational God. So what the Baruch Shem said, because you withstood the test of me being irrational, therefore when the Jews ask me to be irrational, Hanogas HaYichud, I will do it. Because Hanogas HaYichud is a complete stira. You see, it's the rush of a toivloi, an evil man prospers, the tzaddik varaloi, the tzaddikim are suffering, the whole world is topsy-turvy. You see, that's when you know Hanogas HaYichud is activated. When the whole world is topsy-turvy and nothing makes sense, that is the Hanogas HaYichud. You see, and that's irrational. It doesn't make sense what God is doing. You see? So what the Baruch Shem did is, because Avraham Avinu listened to God, even though he appeared irrational, in that merit, if the Jews ever ask me to become irrational, which means to activate the Hanogas HaYichud, I will do it. And what activates it? When did the Jews ask? The shofar, which is the Akedah on Rosh Hashanah. So what we do when we blow shofar, what we're really saying is, God, please, go into your private chambers, judge us, assess us, whatever you do. And even though what you're going to come out with is something which makes absolutely no sense, we are okay with that. We're okay with that. Because that will enable us to survive. So that we're really asking him, begging him, go into the Hanogas HaYichud from the Mishpat. So that's really what happens. God gets up from the Hanogas HaMishpat, the seat of judgment, and goes in this private chamber where his Hanogas Nisteres, his behavior is completely hidden. Not only is it hidden, it makes no sense. It's a complete contradiction to what God said that he stands for, you see. So because of the Akedah and the merit of Avraham Avinu, we can ask God to do to us what he did to Avraham Avinu, which is to act irrational. So therefore we blow the shofar, which is a symbol of the Akedah, right, the ram's horn, and that activates the Hanogas HaYichud even to the extent that it's completely irrational, and therefore we're saved. That's how shofar works. You see? Because of Avraham Avinu's Akedah, he gave us the ability to request God behaving to us in a completely irrational way. I'm going to tell you something, one thing, when you think of the Holocaust, and what the Germans and Hitler did, right? You imagine, just put yourself in the place, you're in a cattle car that can fit 70 people, 300 people in that cattle car. You can't move, and you're in that cattle car for days. Yes? What goes through somebody's mind? Is this rational? How does God do this to his own children? You see, how? You should know the irrationality of the Holocaust is beyond belief. It's not that they were only killed. Jews have always been killed, but it's the manner of their death. They were burned, their skins are lampshades, their fats are soap, right? And the rest of them are fertilizer. I mean, what is this? What manner of death is this? You see, that is irrational. You want to kill a guy, you kill a guy, finish him off. This wasn't death. This was death beyond imagination. How does a nation do that to a human being? And how does the Moshe allow that to his children? Right? That's completely irrational. You have to think about what they thought about in that cattle car. I'm sure that this went through their mind. There were people who said Alpha became. This is what God wants. It has to be Gamzul Tova. But Gamzul Tova is, but still, it is such an opposite. What it meant is that instead of God loving the Jews, the only explanation that one can come logically is that God hates his children, hates them. Because what father would ever subject his children to such a death? Death is one thing. This is not death. This is cruelty and torture to the highest level that does not befit a human. And God is allowing it to be done to his kids, that he says, you see, that is irrationality to the highest order. Yet the Jews want that. That's what we request on Rosh Hashanah. Behave to us in a completely irrational manner. And that way we will survive, you see. And that is the merit of Avraham Avinu. And that's why we read the Akedah, that's why we blow shofar, you see. And that is why that saves us. So, when you are praying to God on Rosh Hashanah, it's not just so much that you're praying in terms of the individual sins you did. You see, you need to be mispaled that please don't change my position in terms of the tikkun. Keep me going at least, or improve my lot, in terms of the tikkun. Sickness and bankruptcy and divorce, illness and death and all this kind of stuff, Please save me and so on. But the key tshuva that a person has to remember is not so much that this and that. The key is that you need to become more spiritual. You need to think about ruchnius more. That has to direct your life, and not gashmius, materialism, and power, and pleasure. That's the key tshuva. And if you do that, there's no question that you will be in Olam Haba. Maybe a rough ride, true, because you got to undo a lot of the stuff, but you will get there in the end. And Olam Haba is a place that we cannot even begin to imagine. Like Chazal say, a yoim shekuloi toiv. Because we live in a time that some days good, 90 days are terrible, and 2 days are not bad. Right? But Chazal say Yom Shekuloi Toiv, that all the days will be incredible. It's funny, they're not even say that when you do experience the Toiv, it will be mind-boggling. No. Because the real thing we want is that, let it be all good every day. All the time it should be good. There should never be a time of bad and evil. Okay? So that's really what you have to think. in terms of doing tshuva. Okay, I think I've answered the questions of Rosh Hashanah. I think you have a good handle on what it's all about. And let's hope that this Rosh Hashanah, Tov Ayin Ches, is what? Tiyeh Shnas Eis Chidush. This is the time of renewal. And because of that, it will be Tiyeh Shnas Eis Chipozon, haste. Because once the Rosh Hashanah decides to say, that's it, then all of a sudden, it's going to go so fast, your head's going to spin. Remember the Jews left B'chipozon? With haste? That's what happens when the Gula starts. So let's hope Tiyeh Shnas Eis Chidush and Tiyeh Shnas Eis Chipozon. That'll be in tremendous speed and acceleration and haste. And that will happen this Elul and this Rosh Hashanah. Amen.